In this lesson, we will discuss automating application development. Deploying innovative, robust, and secure applications quickly and consistently can be very challenging. But by automating our application development efforts, we can improve the efficiency, consistency, and the overall quality of our final software products being released and deployed. In the world of application development, automation really involves the use of technology to manage, test, and deploy new applications or features with minimal human intervention. In the days of legacy software development, every step of the software development testing, release, and deployment process was conducted by our software developers, who are, after all, humans. Now, relying on humans for every step can be a major hurdle that slows down our release and deployment process. For example, under the older waterfall development methodologies, it could often take 3 to 12 months to create a software application. Luckily, in our modern development environments, we can use automations to help us develop software in a more iterative style to rapidly create, test, release, and deploy our applications. Simply by moving to a more iterative or agile development style, we can see many features of the new software application being created and released within just a few weeks. But with the introduction of continuous integration and continuous deployment, we can see some features and software applications being created and released in the same day, and in some really high velocity organizations, sometimes multiple times per day. For example, the photo sharing site Flickr had automated so much of their integration and deployment processes that they were releasing software patches, new features, and new functionality up to 10 times per day at the peak of their software development efforts. So, hopefully you can now see why we wanted to move from the waterfall development methodology to the agile or iterative method, and now to a continuous integration and continuous deployment methodology to really decrease the time it takes to create and release a usable function or feature to our end users. By using continuous integration and continuous deployment, also known as CI/CD, we can significantly improve the efficiency, consistency, and the overall quality of our software applications. So, what is continuous integration? Continuous integration, or CI, is a practice in software development where all of your developers merge their code changes into a central repository multiple times per day. Each check-in is then verified by an automated build process, can provide early notifications if there's a problem detected during the integration and build process. Using automation tools, we can easily manage the integration of code changes from multiple contributors into a single software project and provide us with some automatic notifications for any conflicts or errors. After integrating the code into the central repository, the system will automatically execute a series of tests on that code to help reduce the time and effort traditionally required by manual testing. This testing step is crucial for maintaining software quality when frequent updates and changes are being made by multiple developers across your organization. Immediately following the integration and testing stages, developers will often receive feedback on any issues that were detected so that they can quickly correct or modify their code in response to the feedback that they receive from the automated testing process. This constant communication loop helps to ensure the integrity and functionality of the final software application is maintained. Now that the software is being continuously integrated, it still needs to be prepared for release and deployment. When we talk about a few releases, we're talking about the process of finalizing and preparing new software or updates, verifying through continuous integration for delivery into a specific environment. This environment could be a staging environment or a production environment, and the release process marks the transition point where a particular piece of software is ready for users to access it. Now, a deployment, on the other hand, involves the automated, consistent, and reliable process of pushing out new releases or versions of that software into a target environment, like testing, staging, or production environment, so that it becomes operational and accessible to your end users. Now, I know this sounds like two very similar definitions, but there are key differences between them. When it comes to a release, it is making the software available to people who want to install and use it, whereas deployment involves actually installing the software into a new environment. Now, once the continuous integration is performed, we can then move into continuous delivery or continuous deployment. In the cybersecurity and software development world, we have two different types of CI/CD. One is continuous integration and continuous delivery, while the other is continuous integration and continuous deployment. Regardless of which one you choose to utilize in your organization, we always start with continuous integration, which we have already discussed in this lesson. Now we need to move to either the continuous delivery or continuous deployment option. Let's start with the continuous delivery option first. Continuous delivery ensures that the code base is always in a deployable state after every change through the use of automated testing and building processes. However, it stops short of pushing changes to production automatically. Basically, I want you to think about continuous delivery as part of a release process and not as part of the deployment process. In continuous delivery, the full deployment process is automated only up to a certain stage, such as in the development, testing, or staging environments, but it will not deploy into your live production environment. With continuous delivery, deployment into your production environment is considered to be a manual step so that you can retain the control over when and how the changes are deployed into your live production environment. This means that the deployment of the production environment is a business decision that takes into account various factors like timing, market conditions, and stakeholder readiness. By using continuous delivery, your team has more flexibility to decide when to deploy new changes into the production environment while ensuring that they have a production-ready version of the software at all times. Now, this brings us to the concept of continuous deployment. Continuous deployment takes the process further by automatically deploying all code changes into a testing environment and then into a production environment after the build stage is completed. Every change that passes all stages of your production pipeline will be fully released to your customers with no human intervention to ensure that you can release updates and functions more frequently and reliably. Using automation helps to ensure that each deployment is executed in precisely the same manner by removing the human error from the process and also to provide us with faster deployment. In the event of a failure, there are automated rollback features in our continuous deployment processes that can revert our software or application back to the previous known good state. Having this kind of rollback capability is really essential for maintaining service continuity and availability when relying on continuous deployment models. As you can probably guess, the use of continuous integration and continuous deployment in the development process requires a paradigm shift in the way developers and operational teams collaborate, since we are constantly deploying changes into the live production network. With continuous integration and continuous deployment, our developers must become more involved in the post-code process by taking responsibility for the deployment and functioning of their code instead of simply handing it off to the operational team to conduct the testing and deployment like they used to do in the older waterfall deployment methodology. Now, your operational teams will instead shift their focus from the task of managing deployment logistics to improving the process that enhances the streamlining and the flow of work from the development stage to the deployment stage. The use of continuous integration and continuous deployment also requires a shift towards increased communication and collaboration within your organization's various teams, which creates a culture of collective responsibility for a given project. By embracing the continuous integration and continuous delivery model, organizations will be able to more quickly adapt to changing market demands and allow them to work more efficiently towards their goals. For instance, here at Dion Training, we have implemented continuous integration and continuous deployment into our development processes so that we can merge our code from across our various software developers into a single code base hosted in GitHub. And then our code is automatically tested, built, and deployed into a testing and staging environment. At Dion Training, we have made the risk management decision to not implement continuous deployment, but instead, we rely on continuous delivery instead. This allows our Chief Technology Officer to work with our Chief Operations Officer to determine when is the right time to push any new features, functions, or changes into our live production environment so that it becomes accessible for our students to utilize. So remember, when it comes to automating your application deployment, you will usually do this by configuring the use of continuous integration and continuous delivery, or the use of continuous integration and continuous deployment. This not only optimizes the development process, but it also significantly lowers the risk of deployment failures, increases the frequency of releases, and ensures a new product is always ready to deploy. If your organization wants to stay relevant and competitive in a modern business environment that continuously demands faster, seamless, and more innovative applications, then it is important that you begin to automate your application development by using one of the CI/CD methodologies.